that day I live in a dream. I live in a dream.
Welcome to Only Trying to Help, the podcast where we try to help you be helpful to other people. I'm Kate. As always, I've got family with me today. I'm here with Mike. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Hi. I am, I guess we could say cousins-in-law without the law. Um, yeah, I'm just happy to be here with you. Talking truths.
Yeah, let's drop some knowledge.
All right.
Actually, let's not overpromise because God forbid somebody leans in right now thinking there's real knowledge coming. I'm not sure that there is. It's really just our own experiences. But Mike, I asked you to come on because this season on the podcast, I'm trying to cover as best I can this idea of like how we can help people who might be coming out of the closet, thinking about coming out of the closet, wondering about coming out of the closet. And I did already have a guest on who shared her experience. And I guess to feel like I'm really doing it justice, seems like I should hear some other people's experiences. So thanks for being willing to share yours.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a super smart way to go about it, because one thing I have learned as a member of this community is that no one's experience is the same. And it's important for anyone who is going through this, has just gone through it, or the people around someone who is going through it, to understand that your experience will be unique and different from everyone else's. But the amount of weight that comes off of your shoulders afterwards, no matter how good or bad your experience is, it makes it worth it.
Yeah, that's a great way to kick us off, which is like, we ought not make any assumptions about what a person's experience will be like. And to the helpers out there who are listening and thinking, well, I want to help my friend or my brother or my sister, or, be proud and be who they are. Let's not overpromise to them about what life will be like when they do come out. Let's be careful about saying things like, oh, it'll be fine. Everybody's experience is a little bit different.
Right. It's not always fine. It is a relief to stop lying, but there are definitely trade-offs and things. For everything you gain, there might be something that you lose. For me personally, it's not like it happened one day and I was just like, hey, everyone knows. It was a process, and it happened like from the time that I was 20, towards the end of the age of 20 through the age of 21 and into the age of 22, was like the full arc of my coming out. And I think the person I was most scared to come out to ended up being probably one of the best experiences, which is great. And then some of the people that I thought this might be pretty easy, well, it wasn't. So the first thing I spoke about was the person I thought it would be hardest to. That was my dad. My dad is an Irish Catholic football coach. He is the second of a family of 5 boys. And he, my whole youth, he was always there. He was a great dad, but we had a disconnect because he was such a sports guy, and I just wasn't good at sports. I tried them all. And I did play hockey for 8 years because I had fun. My friends were around. And I was pretty decent, but like my dad always wanted that star athlete, which he kind of did get in my one sister. but I think he was really kind of looking for it in his son. And so I felt this weight that I would be letting him down to tell him, especially because I am the only male in my generation of my family. My dad and all of his brothers, other than me, all had daughters. So I was the last person carrying my family name as well. And the I wasn't going to be having any children to carry that name on. So there was this huge pressure on me. And I spent months thinking to myself, like, how am I going to broach this topic? And how can I let him down easy? And am I going to lose him in my life? Which that was the thing that I was most nervous about and not willing to have that happen. If it meant losing my dad forever, I was like considering just being unhappy and living in a dark place where I wasn't being honest with myself or anyone else. And this was compounded by the fact that while all this was going on, my parents were divorcing. My middle sister was getting married, and my oldest sister had just moved out of state. And like everything in my family was tumultuous at the time. So I was like, okay, cool, let's just do this at the worst possible time. I had just graduated high school, moved on to college, and also decided that I was miserable. I was going to school for architecture. I was miserable with it. And to shock all the listeners, I wanted to leave architecture and pursue a career in the musical theater. I know you don't expect to hear that from someone telling their coming out story, but here we are.
Everyone just fainted.
Right. Yeah. Imagine I'm talking about coming out and I wanted to pursue a career in the musical theater and also work in the Miss America organization. Who'd have thunk? But so I've got all this pressure on me and my family is already dissolving, and here I am about to like drop an acid bomb onto what's already tumultuous. And I had been carrying around this secret and it was killing me. I was also like packing on weight physically because I was like eating my feelings and just burying my head and just trying to find a way to make this thing disappear. And I was at my dad's house one night for dinner, and he just turned to me and asked me, and he said, "Hey, Michael, are you gay?" And I was like taken so aback that he asked me. I was not expecting that at all. And it was like I felt this cold breeze hit me all of a sudden, where it was like, I don't have to hide this. He's like already on to me. Now's the time. If he's already asking me, he's ready to broach this subject, and let's see where we go from here. So I just said, yeah. And then that was it. It was never a thing. It was never an issue. It was just like, he asked me if I was hungry, and I said, yeah. And that was just part of who I was. I was Michael, and I was hungry. And that experience is what gave me, I guess, the courage or the comfort. Comfort is a better word, not courage. It gave me the comfort to know that I could tell anyone else. The only other person I had told up until that point was my oldest sister. And she and I have always been very close. And so there was no change there. When I told her, we were, of all things, we were on our way to mass, like you do. And I told her in the car, she was driving, and her response was, yeah, I've met you. I know. So apparently I wasn't doing a great job hiding it anyway.
Feel, Mike, to know that like your sister knew and your dad just brought it up, so on some level he knew. How does that feel?
Well, I mean, I guess listening to Barbara Streisand's recording of the original Broadway cast of Funny Girl in the Shower for 4 years was probably an indication to them. So in hindsight, I was dropping breadcrumbs along the trail, letting everyone know. But I've also always been that person who, I'm just me. Like, what else am I going to be? I don't know how to be anything else. Even as a kid, believe it or not, I was incredibly shy as a kid. And not because I didn't have a personality or I was scared of my personality. I was the youngest in my family. I was the youngest in my siblings. I was the youngest kid in my neighborhood. I was always around adults. I didn't know how to interact with other kids because I'd never had to. And so when I got to school, I didn't know how to form relationships with other kids, and I did not. I didn't know how to kid. I didn't know how to be a kid. I had always been around adults. Luckily, in the first grade, we had what were called desk buddies, and we were seated like desk side by side. And I was seated with this lovely girl, Jamie, and Jamie has since passed away, and I think about her a lot. But I don't know that I'd be the person that I am today if I wasn't seated next to Jamie, because she brought me out of my shell. She made me speak to people. By talking to Jamie, I became comfortable talking to other people. And that's how I made friends in my class, was that she gave me the courage to have a voice. And if you look at the back of all my report cards as a child, she did a good job, because from that point on, I was always, Michael's super bright, but he talks too much. So I've always been that person that in my comfort zone, I've always been myself. Sometimes it takes me a minute to get to my comfort zone, but I don't know how to be anyone else, which I think is why it was weighing on me so much about coming out, was because I wasn't being myself. And that was hard. That was really, really hard. So yeah, great experience telling my sister, great experience my dad basically telling me he already knew. But there were bumps in the road. So dear listener, if you're around someone who is coming out, not just someone who's coming out, anyone who's going through something heavy emotionally, be aware that the words you say to them in that time stay with them and affect the way they feel about themselves for years to come.
You could become part of someone's coming out story in the worst possible way.
Right.
Because forever, and you're right, Mike, you said not even just coming out, but a person who's going through something really heavy emotionally, they will forever look back on that difficult time, or stressful time or emotional time, and they will always relive what life was like then. And if you are the friend or family member who was not supportive or didn't handle it well, they will always remember that's how you responded in that time.
And conversely,
Mm-hmm.
the people who don't do that, you don't realize sometimes, just by not being a jerk to someone, how much you're really influencing them. And an example of that for me, as a kid, I was teased sometimes. I was called fag and things like that growing up. Because, like I said, I apparently wasn't very good at hiding it. But there's a kid named Chris who I went all through from first grade, actually maybe even kindergarten. I forget if we were in the same kindergarten class or not. But through 12th grade, all through Catholic school together. And we lost touch after high school for a number of years, because I did eventually go on and pursue my dream of working in theater. And it took me away for years. I toured the country several times, and and did all the things that I had dreamed about, which was great. And I probably would not have had the strength to do that and follow my dream if I had continued living a lie. That's a sidebar, but I just wanted to put that out there. Like, you limit yourself by not being yourself.
You can't live a full life.
Right. Or by being a lie of a person.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You can't do what you're meant to do if you're not being authentic. It's really true. Like, you have to be the person that you're supposed to be, that you were built to be, or you're not going to do the things that you're supposed to do. But anyway, Chris, we reconnected probably about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe like 6 years ago, through the magic of social media. And I told him, I think it's about a year or so ago, that he the one thing I remember about him is he never called me fag. He never said that word to me. He never said that word about me. And of all of the kids growing up, even the kids that I was friends with, I mean, you joke around with each other and you say things when you're playing as kids, but like that one word, he never used it, and it has resonated with me for my entire childhood and adult life that he's the kid that never called me that. And he's one of the few people from my childhood who I'm still friends with.
It's a great example of how you don't have to do anything super magical or wonderful to be remembered in a positive way. It's sometimes just the absence of a terrible thing that makes you stand out.
100%. Absolutely. Like, just being a decent person is sometimes all it takes.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you had any experiences with like well-meaning straight people who think they're helping you in some way and they're just definitely not?
Oh my gosh. I mean, how many?
And it's okay if it's me. You can say it on the show if I've been the one. But I'm just curious for the well-meaning straight allies out there who think they're helping their gay friends. Can you tell us some of those things?
I mean, I was asked today at work about like what my opinion is on pronouns. And this was someone who actually really, like, I do have to say, this person really was doing this for the betterment of themselves. And they
Mm-hmm.
were asking, like, listen, I don't have friends who I can ask about this. I deal with people in work. I need to know how to like do this the right way.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on it? Because you're like kind of a peripheral part of that community. I mean, my pronouns are he, him. But, I have lots of friends who are trans or non-binary or like the whole gamut. Every color in our little rainbow flag is represented somewhere in the context list in my phone. So um, that was someone who actually was well-intentioned, but the amount of I can't even give an example because I probably have 8 a day that I just at some point they have to become like water off a duck's back or you'll just implode.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I
Yeah.
definitely have uh, purposefully lit a match and burned a bridge with someone because what they thought was well intentioned or well meaning was so hideously offensive. And the thing is, when I do that, it's usually not because you have offended. I'm very hard to offend, but I will absolutely stand up and be offended for someone else who doesn't have the strength to be offended for themselves. Like, when I see that someone has done something, said something that has hurt someone else, and they're too frail themselves or working through something on their own that they don't have the strength in that moment to stand up for themselves, I'm like, go take your seat, work through what you have to work through, and I'm going to go be mad at this person for you so that
Yeah.
they know that what they did was wrong. It's not about vengeance or anything like that. I don't want that person to years later look back and be like, that was the moment that I could have said something to that person or whatever, and I let it pass. And now who else have they done it to?
Mhm.
I'm always that person who's like, don't worry about it. I'll make sure they know so you don't have to think about this in the future and wonder what would have happened if you had said something. I'll just make sure it gets said. Which I don't know if that's necessarily the best way to do that, but it's how I operate.
I mean, I sometimes we use the word ally to describe someone who's like outside of a community but trying to support a community. I think allies can be within the same community, and I feel like that's you being an ally to someone, saying like, you need to take a breath, you need to sit down, you're in a vulnerable situation. I will step up and fight the fight for you because like I'll do that, and I think when we step in for folks who've been hurt, we are being allies, whether you come from the same community as they do or not.
100%. And I will say that I probably have that mentality because I've had people do it for me in the past. Someone has done that for me when I was a fledgling little homosexual at the turn of the last century. Um, I I will say that I do think I'm really lucky, Kate, in that I think I came out in probably the best time to come out because of the sense of community that still existed. We had just gone through Y2K, and first of all, everyone was just happy to be alive because the world didn't end as it was expected to at midnight on New Year's Eve. But the internet wasn't such a big thing yet. There was no social media at all, really. And queer people supported queer people, no matter what it was. We had a community, we had safe spaces, we had bars and places like that where it was just queer people. Now it's hard to find a bar that's just a gay bar or just a lesbian bar or whatever, because it's so integrated, and to a certain extent that's great. It's so wonderful that people feel comfortable around us now, because for so long we were ostracized. But at the same time, I do think there still needs to be safe spaces just for queer people to be together and support each other and be comfortable with each other and not have to. I feel sometimes like we have to babysit our straight friends in those places. Like they come in and we have to walk them through queer culture, and it doesn't afford us the time to bathe in queer culture and absorb it and learn who we are and learn who each other are and how to interact and support each other. That was such a huge part of the time when I came out. I had wonderful friends that I made working in theater, which is the first place I was really exposed to other queer people. And that's where I was like, oh, hey, this is my group. These people are like me. They built me up and gave me strength. They carried me when I was too weak to do it myself. And that's where I am now. Like I turn around and I do that for other people. That's where that mindset comes from me, where like if someone says something and that person's too weak to do it in that moment, I'm like, I got you. This is what we're supposed to do.
I think you're touching on something really important, specifically around safe spaces. I got to do a whole episode on safe spaces, Mike. So I'm trying to choose a few things. One is, you're right. I do think it's cool when lots of people feel comfortable going into a gay bar, going to a lesbian bar. Yes. I also am aware as a straight person that like all bars are built for me, right? So like all bars are my space. I'm also Irish, so come on.
Right. Exactly.
Like really all bars are like a big old welcome sign for Kate Watson. And I do think straight people have a responsibility to not overuse or take over or dominate or steal a space that was designed for folks who can't just go anywhere. They are looking for specific safe places. And yeah, it's nice that I'm comfortable in a gay bar, and I certainly go to them from time to time. But when I'm there, I am acutely aware that I could go anywhere. I'm taking up space in a very sacred space right now.
Right. And also value that, like, understand that when you are invited as a straight person by a gay person, a queer person into one of those places, that is high praise, that we want you there with us, that we feel comfortable inviting you into that place, that we want you to share in our, like, our inner sanctum, if you will. Um, but that's a whole other episode, I think.
It may be. So, I mean, we may have to have you back, but to complete my thought, this may not complete yours, but to complete my thought on safe spaces, I also am aware that I used to work at a university where they had developed this training program for staff to develop sensitivity and sort of like a cultural competency around working with the LGBTQ community. And if people went through this training program, which was rather intense, they were able to put a sign on their door with a rainbow that says safe space. And so we were going around kind of promoting this training program. And a lot of faculty and staff said, I can't go to the training program, but I'd happily, I'm happy to take a rainbow and throw it on my door. And we had to say, no, we
No.
don't want to label spaces safe if we don't know that they are. That could
Right.
just be like a trap for some vulnerable student who sees the rainbow and thinks, I should be okay in there. And maybe they're not. And so I felt like they were well meaning when they said, well, just give me the rainbow. I'll just stick it on my window. That was well meaning. I know they were coming from a good place, but we had to say, you're not eligible. You have to go to the training.
Yeah. I mean, not only is it something where perhaps it could end up being entrapment, but also you need to go to the training because even if you're still well intentioned and someone comes into you with a problem that you don't understand how to deal with this person, you might make it worse. So attend, yeah, don't just slap up a rainbow. Like learn what you need to do in a situation like that for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I do. We sort of veered off something I was talking about earlier, and I do want to kind of bring it back because I feel like it's the reason you brought me here. Um, we were talking about the way relationships change and things like that when you come out, and that's why people are scared to sometimes. And one of those for me um, was someone I was one of my best friends from high school, and I did have many of my relationships changed. I don't really understand why people change the way that they communicate and welcome someone who's already been in their life with this key piece of information that has literally changed. I mean, unless I'm asking you to become involved with me in some sort of relationship deeper than what we've had, this really shouldn't be a game changer. Like, what does it matter? It's like if my friend told me they were in a new relationship with someone of the opposite gender, okay, cool. If I'm telling you that I don't want to be in a relationship with someone of the opposite gender, but I still want to be in a relationship with someone, what does it matter to you? Nothing's happening in your pants. You know what I mean? Um, One of my best friends from high school, uh, I feel like our relationship died when I came out, and the reason being is because later he came out, and I feel like he had a level of jealousy, maybe almost, that I was at that place already and he wasn't there. Um, and it sort of disintegrated all of the good things that we had, that we had built as friends for years. Um, so that's, I completely understand why even today when people are under the impression that it's so much easier to come out now, it's not. It never will be different or easier. What is easier is the key piece of coming out that I think people overlook. And it's probably the hardest piece. The first person you have to come out to, and that's yourself. That is the hardest part of coming out, is coming out to yourself. And what I mean by that is we are brought up with this whole we're given this fairy tale of what life is supposed to be, and it's different for everyone. It's given to you by the people around you of what your life should look like, what your successful life should be. And 99% of the time, that is a heterosexual life. And at a certain point, you have to say to yourself and come to terms with yourself that what you have been taught is the right way to be is not who you are. And that all the things you thought were your hopes and you thought were your dreams and your goals and where you were going to land are false. They're not what's right for you. And you have to start all over. And it's like reverting to a like 5-year-old child. And you're like, I have to rebuild who I am as a person. No one's prepared for that. You have to reparent yourself. You have to become a parent to yourself and raise yourself again with new ideals and new goals. How to become accepting of people that at some point in time someone told you were not okay. Because you are one of those people now. So you have to learn to love yourself. And everyone has to learn to love themselves, but this is a whole different ballgame. And once you do that and you come to terms with that for yourself, that is the only time that you can start coming out to other people. It's impossible to do it before then. You can't. You have to face that reality for yourself. And recognizing that has become easier because you have people you can identify with in the media and in the world around you. But the act of doing it, the act of dashing all of your hopes and dreams that you've had since childhood, that'll never get easier. You know, you may be able to look and see and say, oh, I'm like that person. I'm like Will from Will and Grace, you know what I mean? Or I'm like whatever popular show is. I'm an old person now, so I don't know what the kids are watching, but whatever.
Don't look at me.
Right. Whatever show they're watching, whatever queer character. For me, I think the first glimpse into that was My So-Called Life.
Yeah.
When I was 14, when I would still flip through the weekly Macy's sale paper and I'd get to the men's underwear page, it would make me feel funny in my tummy. And I was like, oh, what's that? Is that the Holy Spirit? And then suddenly I saw a character on TV who was like, oh, no, like I like boys. I'm like, oh, do I like boys? Is that what's happening? There's more of that now. People can see themselves, so they're easier to identify that what they're feeling is a thing.
Yeah.
But it is never going to get easier to completely unburden yourself from all of the things that you've learned and create a new personal construct of what your life is supposed to be, who you are supposed to be, and how you are supposed to then translate that to the people around you. That'll never be easier.
Initially, when you said, and maybe these weren't even your words, Mike, but I think you said something like coming out will never get easier. My first reaction was like, sure it will. But now the way you've described it, I'm following you. You're saying, you know what's always going to be hard in life is loving yourself when you've received messages that you're not worthy of love or you're not lovable, or there's something about you that's gross or wrong. That will always be hard to do forever.
100%. Yeah. And that doesn't just apply to queer people. That applies to the girl who in middle school was called fat, or the boy who in high school had pimples and was told that he was ugly. But those things are things that can change. You know what I mean? You can see a dermatologist, you can go on a diet, you can whatever. You can put in the work to make that part of yourself acceptable to other people. A queer person can't do that. That's, I know that some politicians out there and some churches out there will say, sure you can. We could just shock it right out of you. But that is not real. No, I don't know how, like in plainer terms, no one would willingly go out into the world with a target on their back. So anyone who thinks that this is a choice, that this is us turning our back on God or Christianity or anything like that, it's not. No one is going to say, how can I make my life harder, more difficult, and filled with hate? Like, that's not something that someone's trying to do. It is who you are, and you have to find a way to have the strength to be that real person in a world where a lot of people are just going to hate you for existing.
Yeah. I'm going to use your word, authentic self. It will always be hard to be your authentic self in the face of everything we are taught we are supposed to be. I think that is true. The thing I'm more hopeful about, and you can tell me if I'm living in a fantasy world, I guess I'm hopeful that maybe there will come a day, and I may not live to see it, but maybe there will come a day when people don't even have to come out. Like, you just bring a guy home to dinner and it's not like a big announcement.
I think some people are already living in that day. There are some people who have had that awesome supportive family from the beginning where it's just like, you don't have to tell us, and that's great. There will always be a day where someone doesn't have that. That's just human nature. No matter how far we come, there will always be someone who hates for some reason or another. There will always be hate. It's unfortunate, but it's a human truth.
I think I can agree, because you're describing it as just like there will always be people who have to say to their family, I'm not who you want me to be. Even if that's not about being gay, it could be about some other thing, but there will always be people who have to sit the family down and say, guess what? My life's not going to look the way you wanted my life to look. That
Right.
will always be.
Yeah, let's not forget, at the same time I was telling them I was gay, I also had to tell them I wasn't going to be an architect. I was going to go into the theater and be poor for the rest of my life. So,
Yeah.
there's always something.
Yeah, and there may be more down the road.
That's right. Absolutely. But you know what? People have had to come to me and tell me that there are expectations that I've had, maybe not of them, but for them sometimes.
Yeah.
And that I was going to have to come to terms with the fact that it wasn't going to be that way. And you know what? I have to, in those moments, take my own advice. And I have to say, you know what? That's just what it's going to be. And I'm still here, and I'm still your friend or your brother or your son or whoever the relation that person has to me. And that's what acceptance is about, is accepting. And sometimes it's hard. And in those moments, I have to remind myself, like my Irish Catholic football coach, Dad, when I told him, was just like, all right, well, let's have dinner. Oh my gosh, I didn't tell you. So when he asked me, we were getting ready to have dinner. I just leaned in for the viewer or the listener who can't see.
Right.
We're on Zoom, and I leaned in real close, like we're having a heart-to-heart girl chat over the Mall Madness game at our sixth grade sleepover. But my dad said, Michael, are you gay? And I said, yeah. And his next question was, well, what do you want for dinner? Burgers or hot dogs? And my response was, Dad, I just told you I'm gay. bring on the beef. Because no matter what, Kate, when you boil it all down, whether I'm gay or I'm an actor or whatever, I'm always going to be ridiculous. That's my hallmark.
That's your authentic self.
Yeah, my authentic self is ridiculous and laugh at all costs.
Yeah. Oh gosh, Mike, I'm trying to bring this to like a closing thought, and there's just too many open avenues. I think what we can say, and you tell me if I'm capturing this right. I think what we can say to people is that if someone comes to you and says, I want to tell you I'm gay and I haven't told my family yet, I don't know how to go about this. I think my opinion is I think the best way to handle that is just to say, thanks for telling me. I love you. And we can go at your pace, your timeline, however you want to do this. The ball is in your court. This is your decision to make. My fear is that well-meaning people say, let's call your family right now. Like, no.
Yeah, no, absolutely no. Yeah, you're right. The thing to say is not even say let's go at your pace. All you have to say is I still love you.
Yeah.
That's all you have to say. Because there doesn't have to be a pace. Maybe, I would hope that everyone is able to come out, but maybe you're just not. Maybe you will lose your family. Maybe it's a religious thing or a cultural thing, or you're in a country where you're not safe. There are a lot of things. I hope that in some sect of your life, you can be who you truly are. But if it isn't safe for you to come out to someone and you can't and you don't, that is so unfortunate for you, but it's also okay. There doesn't have to be a pace.
Yeah, that's great.
So the important thing is just to say to that person, I love you anyway. Thank you for being honest with me. And I will hold this information in whatever regard you want me to.
Yeah.
Let me know when you're ready, if you're ever ready. I'm still here for you. And if you can't be that person, listener, if it goes against every fiber of your religious being or whatever, that is your call. No one can make you comfortable. But don't make that hard thing worse for that other person. You just say, listen, that's who you are. I accept that's who you are. I don't have to be part of that if that's how you are. But don't make it worse. Tell that person that you accept that that's who they are, and if your views don't align anymore, it's the same as any other person for any other reason if you can't be their friend or whatever anymore, but do not make them feel hated or like less of a person because they were brave enough and had the fortitude to be honest with you.
Yeah, as sad as it is to see relationships end, I think it's better to lose that friend and just part ways, just part ways, than to have that friend blow your life up, start calling people, talking about you, spreading this around. Like, if you can't support someone, gracefully bow out. Just bow out. Just
Right.
part ways. Yeah.
Absolutely. The long and the short of it is life is too short to be surrounded by hate. Surround yourself with love. There is love out there for every single person. You can build your own family. Family does not have to be blood. I mean, Kate, look at you and I. Are we blood? No. But are you my family? 100%.
Well, I am Irish Catholic, so I assume everyone I meet is my cousin.
Well, I mean, there's a good chance that we are related, honestly. This whole thing could be very incestuous for you and I. I actually just did some genealogy on my family, and there's a good chance, like like a 50% chance that possibly my great great grandparents don't know it, but like I'm cousins through to myself through my great great grandparents. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, I only have 10 fingers and 10 toes, so there's no major deformities. But
And now you can just love yourself like family.
there you go.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Thank you for doing this.
No, it was my pleasure, and I hope I can come back for more frivolous conversations on the pod. I think
You
where we
don't
can
have
laugh a
to.
little bit more.
You don't have to just be our gay dude.
I appreciate that, and you know what? Thank you. That is
Mhm.
another thing I want to touch on that real fast before we let you go, listener. Please remember that the gay people in your life are multifaceted individuals. We are not a caricature of a person, and our only characteristic is not that we are gay.
Mhm.
Sure, it's all fun to joke and laugh that I did musical theater and was involved with the Miss America pageant because it's stereotypical, but I'm also a big Eagles fan and I love the Phillies. And you know, there are more things to me. I'm an artist, and I am an Aquarius and an empath, and I think that witchcraft is interesting, although I don't practice it. So, like, you know, people are deep and diverse within themselves. Please don't pigeonhole us as, you know, the swishy, glitter covered person who has great style and can dance.
Take me in your arms. I don't want to miss a day without you. Let's stay young forever. There is nothing we can't do. And nothing can break us apart when we're together. Facing the sky, we know that we can fly on the wings of love. And we can climb on every mountain top. I never knew eternity was real till I met you. Since that day, I live in a dream.